Chapter 46, Little Skeleton acts violently. When Hansa had moved behind the fatty, he discovered that out of the 10 or so mercs defending the fatty, the strongest of them were 2 mid-ranked warriors, followed by 6 novice warriors and a few other warrior apprentices. All of them were covered with wounds, and the 2 strongest mid-ranked warriors were injured the most heavily, to the point where they had almost lost the ability to fight. Master Fabian, we're the ones who are supposed to protect you. The mid-ranked warrior with blood still bubbling out of a bloody hole in his rib cage grew agitated as he saw Hansa quickly draw near. The situation now is quite apparent that you have lost the ability to fight and cannot offer me effective protection. I paid half of the gold to your mercenary band earlier, but because you were unable to escort me back to the Empire, I will not be paying the second half, Fabian said with a face full of resignation, and then pasted a warm slight smile on his face. He bowed slightly and said to Hansa, "Oh mighty warrior, please take me away from here and I will pay you 200 gold. Alright, give me 100 gold first and I'll start immediately." Hansa was at ease and also responded with a slight smile. At this moment, upon seeing that Hansa did not seem to be leaving, the forest troll leader finally screamed with violent rage, "Devious and evil humans, kill them all." When the leader's words sounded, the troll warriors, hunters and priests that had been standing blankly in their places called out in the weird language of the forest trolls and rushed over in large strides. "Alright, this is 100 golds. When you safely take me away from here, I'll give you the other 100 gold. Damn it, they're coming for us, make your move." Fabian hastily took out a money bag and poured out 100 gold coins for Hansa when he saw that the forest trolls were rushing over with ugly expressions and wielding weapons. Having received the 100 gold coins, Hansa suddenly smiled at Fabian. Before Fabian had a chance to react, Hansa had swung Fabian onto his back and ripped out a few tattered pieces of gauze from an open pocket. He firmly tied Fabian onto his back without further ado. "Let's go, I'll get you safely away from here. You must hold on tight. If you fall off halfway, you have only yourself to blame," Hansa hurriedly instructed as he threw away the battle axe in his hand, grabbed a new long spear from beside him and abruptly dashed towards the perimeter. 7 troll warriors had long since blocked the way with a few other hunters and priests behind them. They had already thrown out their long spears and javelins with whooshing sounds when they saw that Hansa was rushing towards them. Even with a fatty on his back, Hansa still navigated the rough and windy paths with ease. He agilely changed direction and easily evaded several long spears and javelins. When Hansa had rushed to the side of the 7 troll warriors, the long-awaiting troll warriors rushed towards him carrying their battle axes. He clenched the long spear in his hand tightly as Hansa rapidly closed the distance, and the spear stabbed towards the chest of the first troll. A blood-red flower suddenly blossomed on his chest and the troll warrior fell directly backwards after he shuddered. At this moment, the troll priest towards the back started singing healing and fire of the soul magics. A few beams of green light descended onto the troll warriors. The troll warrior who had fallen shakily got back to his feet. When the other troll warriors had been enveloped by the magic of the fire of the soul, it was as if a layer of metallic skin had been applied to their already tough green skin. Their skin shone with a metallic gleam, followed by simultaneous increases in speed and strength. They rushed at the 2 with loud wails. "Hurry, hurry and get me out of here." Fabian was frightened out of his wits and started screaming in a panic on Hansa's back. His expression unchanged. Hansa ignored Fabian's calls and yells. He abruptly threw out the spear in his hand and impaled the troll warrior that had just unsteadily clambered to its feet through the neck and nailed it to the floor. He then pulled out the spears and javelins stuck on the ground and threw them one by one towards the priests hiding the back. One of the priests didn't dodge in time and was immediately pierced to death. Another 2 troll hunters also died due to being impaled from the front. At this moment, Hansa randomly pulled out a long spear and started to directly confront the troll warrior in front of him. Having had the fire of the soul cast on it, all of the troll warrior's bodily functions had increased significantly. However, Hansa's current condition had had some small achievements in practicing magic, and the toughness and flexibility of his body still far outstripped them. He maneuvered the long spear and flicked out the battle axes one by one. Throughout this process, when the battle axes had been sent flying from the troll warrior's hands, they would pull out a javelin or long spear from the ground, at the same time thoroughly blocking the way and entangling Hansa. He was up against 6 with a fatty on his back. Even though he dodged with high speed, he still wasn't wasn't able to fully avoid all the injuries. Whenever danger approached him, Hansa would very evilly use Fabian on his back as a shield, using the latter's fat stocky body to decrease the damage inflicted on his own body. Damn it, you can't do this, otherwise don't even expect receive the 100 gold coins after. Fabian's butt had been poked by a long spear and his back had been bloodied by a few javelins. He wailed in continuous complaints on Hansha'o's back. Unfortunately, Hansha'o completely ignored all of Fabian's complaints. He conveniently pulled a long spear embedded in the chest of a troll warrior, and the resulting spray of flesh blood fully splattered all over Hansha'o. Hansha'o's expression had been cold and vicious to begin with, and he looked even more like the reincarnation of a bloodthirsty god with all the blood over him. This momentarily shocked Fabian senseless, and he didn't dare speak further nonsense, merely whimpered and cried on Hansha'o's back. Kill him, rush him together. The forest troll leader suddenly exploded into an irate roar upon seeing that Hansha'o had killed quite a few forest trolls. He even pulled out a battle axe from behind him and rushed over. Currently, although Hansha'o wasn't particularly breaking a sweat facing off against 5 trolls, it was still exceedingly difficult for him to break through. When the troll leader had finished speaking, even more forest troll warriors rushed over. Hansha'o dodged the crushing blow from a battle axe and backed up a few steps. Souls of the fallen soldiers, heed the Dark Herald's call and reveal your existence. Hansha'o spread out his hands and suddenly chanted the spell used for a necromancy summons. Oh my gosh, you're also a mage. Fabian had been sobbing in a low voice when he was momentarily shocked by Hansha'o starting an incantation. He looked blankly at Hansha'o with an odd expression and called out weirdly. The forest troll leader off in the distance was startled and then increased its speed, screaming loudly, "Kill him, hurry up and kill him!" A small skeleton that wielded a bone dagger suddenly materialized in front of Hansha'o. Its small thin body stood there in solitude as its empty eye sockets patrolled the area, a bit at a loss. "Oh come on, just one little skeleton, and such a thin small one. What use is it?" Fabian started wailing with surprise when he saw that Hansha'o had summoned just one skeleton. Wahahaha, so it was just one skeleton. That scared me. Kill them all. Upon seeing that it was just one skeleton after being shocked, the forest troll leader immediately jeered loudly and directed the troll warriors to quickly approach. Hansha'o's 2 eyes were cold as a trace of a mocking smile also made its way to his lips. When the forest troll leader had spoken, he immediately gave the order for the little skeleton to attack. When the little skeleton received the command to attack, its small leg bones bent down and then extended, suddenly flying out like a sharp sword. The bone dagger in its hand drew a line of black light through the empty air as it flew out first. The first troll warrior that came rushing up was directly pierced through its forehead like cutting paper, and it fell straight down backwards. The little bone dagger didn't stop after running through the head of the first troll warrior. It whistled through the air according to the little skeleton's motions, just like a ghost out for blood. Ear-deafening whistling sounds accompanied secretive and unpredictable curves as it ran through 2 more troll warriors with another stroke. When the little skeleton drew close to the troll warriors, the dagger returned automatically back into the little skeleton's hands. The mere loosening of the bone dagger had instantaneously taken the lives of 3 troll warriors. The previously exceedingly disappointed Fabian and loudly jeering troll leader were both dumbfounded after the little skeleton's single strike. They stared closely with a face of incredulity at the little skeleton. It was like a tiger that had entered a flock of sheep. The little bone dagger that was grasped tightly in its hand began to nimbly reap the lives of the troll warriors. Oh my goodness. Am I seeing things? Is that really only just one skeletal warrior? Fabian had finally recollected his wits and began to shout excitedly. If it wasn't for the gauze that had completely wrapped around him, he might have even fallen off and landed on the ground in his excitement. Don't get close to him, everyone. Stay away from the skeleton and use long spears, javelins and battle axes to kill that skeleton. After the troll leader had recovered from its shock, it issued loud commands with a look of fear. Its originally advancing body stopped in its tracks as it began to back up in cowardice. The troll warriors that had been close to the little skeleton had all retreated. When they had left, long spears, javelins and even the troll warriors' battle axes filled the air and descended upon the little skeleton. Hansha'o was startled. As strong as the little skeleton was, it would most likely be hit under such a strong barrage of attacks, but he wouldn't be able to recall it in time even if he started the incantation now. Hansha'o grew anxious and started truly worrying for the little skeleton. Except the little skeleton's succeeding fancy incredible performance completely upended Hansa's understanding and knowledge of it. Chapter 47, the horror of 7 bone spurs. At this moment the 7 bone spurs on the back of the little skeleton suddenly waved in the air with a creaking sound. When the barrage of javelins, long spears and battle axes were about to land on the little skeleton, the 7 bone spurs instantaneously detached themselves from the little skeleton's spine and whirled into the air, dancing in an interweaving pattern in front of the little skeleton and above its head with great whooshing sounds. The little skeleton held its ground wielding the bone knife, and its little body capered madly as if it was having an epileptic fit. The 7 bone spurs drew mysterious curves through the air as if manipulated into a dance by invisible hands according to the little skeleton's will. Continuous cracks rang out as the flying javelins, spears and battle axes were all struck down and broken by the interweaving 7 bone spears. Not a single one made it near the little skeleton's body. Hansa pinched his own waist and only knew this moment was truly real after he felt pain radiating from his side. Not only could the little skeleton manipulate the bone dagger and face off against enemies, but it could even activate the 7 bone spurs on its back and make them form such a frightening weapon. This made Hansa feel that in this moment the little skeleton was really quite incredible. The law of activating magic was a law that activated magical treasures to attack. The last time Hansa had bafflingly transmitted those memories to the little skeleton, TL note, chapter 27, he had seen the little skeleton immediately activate the bone dagger in a flying dance. This was already enough to astonish Hansa, but now that the little skeleton could even activate the 7 bone spurs on its back, this thoroughly flabbergasted Hansa. In order to activate the law of activating magic other than an understanding of the law, a magical treasure that was tied with the caster's life and shared one mind with the caster was also needed in order to call upon the law naturally. It looks like that unbeknownst to anyone, the 7 bone spurs and bone dagger had become the little skeleton's magical treasures under the constant reforging from the magical yuan. Hansa didn't have a magical treasure at hand and thus couldn't activate the law of activating magic, but who would have thought that a dark creature, a little skeleton, was walking ahead of Hansa and had been the first to successfully activate it? Oh my gosh, what kind of monster is this little skeleton? Fabian gave an excited and high-strung moan, exclaiming in a low voice while being tongue-tied and with eyes bugging out. After the flying javelins, long spears and battle axes had all been demolished, the forest trolls were also completely shocked. Following that, the 7 bone spurs that had been circling the little skeleton's body abruptly flew in all directions and pierced through the bodies of the 7 forest trolls that were standing there in a stupor. Demon, this is a demon within a skeleton's body. Run! An extremely panicked and horror-filled scream rang out from one of the forest trolls' mouth. It was as if this was a signal to retreat, as all the forest trolls started fleeing for their lives in various directions like lost dogs. Even the forest troll leader had no more crap to say as it ran heedlessly in a sprint for escape. A situation's development was always so out of expectations. Hansa had only planned on breaking out and escaping from here and hadn't reckoned on the fact that the little skeleton's 7 bone spurs would be equipped with such scary power. When Hansa had recovered himself, the surroundings were littered with more than 10 forest troll corpses and there were no longer any living forest trolls. Ha ha ha, good boy, good boy. Hansa suddenly had an exceedingly proud feeling and couldn't stop from laughing wildly. At the same time, the 7 bone spurs whirled in a circle in thin air and then accurately landed back on the little skeleton's spine. The little skeleton stood up straight afterwards with bone dagger in hand and started searching the forest troll corpses with practiced motions. It took everything on the bodies except for the clothes. Give it to me, the other 100 gold coins. Hansa smiled lightly as he let Fabian down from his body and asked for the remaining payment from a Fabian that was still shocked silly. At this moment Fabian's eyes were still patrolling over the little skeleton's body. He only came back to himself when Hansa's voice sounded. Just as Fabian was about to bring out the gold coins, he suddenly thought of something and glared at Hansa. No! You dared to use me as a shield when fighting with the forest trolls just now. Your actions have completely harmed the position of the employer. How dare you think of the other 100 gold coins? His face suddenly stilling with a cold look, Hansa's frigid gaze roved over Fabian's body. He randomly plucked a javelin from the ground and asked lightly, Mr. Fabian, are you trying to cheat me? On the other side, the little skeleton that had been collecting the spoils of war suddenly stopped as well, its empty sockets looking at Fabian. Coldness suddenly emanated throughout Fabian's body as his heart gave a shudder. He reluctantly squeezed out a smiling face and took a few timid steps backwards, saying joking, "It was just a joke. Hey hey ha ha, here's 100 gold coins and not a single one short. You've done great work." Hansa lightly, and as he put the 100 gold coins away without further blather, a feeling of carefree enjoyment rose in his heart as he thought powerful strength is never unfavorable. "Noble warrior, the items on the forest rolls." "Mine, all mine." Hansa abruptly cut off his words before Fabian had a chance to finish, matter-of-factly presuming that all those items were his spoils of war. Squeezing out a forced laugh, Fabian continued, of course they're all yours. I mean to say that I can purchase the items you've gleaned off the forest rolls." His brow furrowed. Hansa looked suspiciously at Fabian and a smile made its way to his face. Hansa mimicked Clark and bowed urbanely. "Does Mr. Fabian mean to say that he plans on buying these items from me by means of gold coins?" That face changes swiftly. Fabian cursed inwardly, pasting the same smile on his face, and nodded. "Indeed, I am a merchant and venture in and out of the dark forest to purchase items found within and bringing them back to the Empire for profits. As infamous robbers within the dark forest, the forest trolls should have some of what I need. If you don't mind, I plan to buy them off you." At this moment the little skeleton walked silently over to stand beside Hansa with 8 handbags hanging off his hands. Under Hansa's orders, the little skeleton put the 8 bags down and used the bone dagger in hand to flip them open one by one. Hansa also took out the treasures he'd gleaned during this trip and put them on the ground awaiting Fabian's appraisal. 8 level 5 magical creature cores, 6 level 4 and 1 level 3, 3 complete twin blade wolf pelts, 3 fangs from the venom lizards, 1 egg from the deep water venom python, and 5 blades of moon-eating grass. "I can give you 1,000 gold for all of this together. What do you say?" Fabian appraised the items silently after he had categorized them all and lifted his head to smile at Hansa. Shaking his head, Hansa said with an odd air, "That's nothing. The deep water venom python is a level 3 magical creature. Its egg alone should be worth a great deal, not to mention the core of a level 3 magical creature. You offer only 1,000 gold coins. Do you take me for an idiot?" Hansa knew that the price for a level 3 magical creature would naturally not be too low, but he didn't clearly quantify how many gold coins because he was unsure of the actual price. However, it was a given that merchants would always offer a price far below market price, so Hansa naturally wouldn't let him have the items so easily. The deep water venom python is a level 3 magical creature, but the rate of success for raising a deep water venom python from an egg is pathetically low, and it's not a guarantee that it will identify someone as its master. Therefore the price can't be too high. "How about this? I offer 1,500 gold coins. What do you say?" Hansa said nothing and only looked at Fabian with a slight smile. 2,000 gold coins. This is my final offer. If you're unwilling to sell, then forget it. I'll leave. Fabian grit his teeth and finally raised his own price up another 500 gold coins. Seeing as this was about the limit, Hansa smiled lightly and said faintly, 2,000 it is. The items are yours, but what about the gold coins? These items would surely be worth more than this in the Empire, but Hansa was still in the dark forest and without a space ring it would be inconvenient to take these things with him. In addition, Hansa's status was just an errand slave in the Babylon Academy of Magic and Force. It would be difficult for him to dispose of the items in the Empire. It would be easier and more convenient to directly hand them over to Fabian. "This is a crystal card with 2,000 gold coins saved in it. You can take this crystal card to any savings firm and exchange it for gold coins." "Oh right, what's your name?" "I can print your name into the crystal card for you." Fabian took out a thin card made from golden colored crystals and asked Hansa, "Brian." "Oh okay, Brian." Fabian took out another thin needle-like item after taking out the crystal card and slightly drew it over a thin slot in the corner of the crystal card. A faint golden light winked and the crystal card went back to normal. Hansa had arrived at this world for a while, and after purposefully getting to know this world understood that a crystal card functioned like an an ATM card in his original world. Gold, silver and bronze coins were all tangible items with heft to them. No one could possibly carry thousands or tens of thousands of gold coins on themselves. These crystal cards were a necessity for nobles. Crystal cards could be used at will in the omnipresent savings firms to save or withdraw gold coins. Here Brian, this crystal card is yours from now on. Fabian gave the crystal card to Hansa and smiled looking at him. I'm called Fabian, a member of the Empire's Boost Merchant Guild. You can come find me at the guild if you ever have anything to sell in the future. This is my address. Put it away carefully. The Boost Merchant Guild was one of the biggest merchant guilds in the Empire, controlled by the Boost family. Even Hansa, who didn't get much in the way of rumors and news, had heard about the wondrous resources of the Boost Merchant Guild. Listening to Fabian's words, Hansa immediately carefully put away the crystal card and smiled. Mr. Fabian, nice to meet you. Perhaps I really will have something to bother you with in the future. The forest trolls won't dare disturb you now and our matter is concluded. Goodbye. Hansa didn't say much after those words and he gave the little skeleton an order. One man and one skeleton quickly vanished off into the distance. Hello, brave mercenaries. I think our business can continue to be conducted. Fabian called out to the mercenaries who were looking after their wounds and walked towards them upon seeing Hansa suddenly leave. Chapter 48, The Allure of Gold Coins. After departing from Fabian, Hansa's path took him straight to the outskirts of the dark forest. He took paths that their group had all taken before. During his journey, Hansa continued to practice magic. Having gone through the reforging of the solid realm, it was as if Hansa had been reborn. Now that his magical training had bore fruit, the magical yuan could travel to all parts of his body according to his will. There were 9 levels in the world of demonic magic and Hansa had now reached the open passages realm. The training for the open passages and solid realms differed slightly. This was a realm that primarily focused on the expansion of the body's meridians, greatly increasing the width and durability of the meridians. In every instance of training, the process of opening passages filled his body with splitting agony as if there were insects biting and gnawing within the meridians. The first 3 levels of demonic magic of solid open passages and molded spirit were the most foundational realms. Training became increasingly difficult as one progressed, but with the experience of training in the solid realm, Hansa already understand that agony and inhumane torture accompanied his magical training. The inhumane pain of the open passages realm was also within his expectations. He used magical yuan to repeatedly expand his meridians without letting up for a second, basing it purely on indomitable will. After 12 days of training and traveling, Hansa still hadn't run into Fanny and the others along the way. He finally made it out of the dark forest alone and made it to the town of Drill again when dusk fell. Compared to a month ago, Hansa had weathered through the trials of the dark forest, and since then his strength, mindset and appearance had all undergone drastic changes. Hansa was now over 170 centimeters, and although his body wasn't too muscular, he was no longer thin and scrawny. After baptism by fresh blood, Hansa had greatly improved both his pluck and knowledge. His entire aura was also undergoing mysterious changes. He was slowly changing under circumstances that even Hansa himself wasn't even aware of. At dusk, the town of Drill was enclosed in a happy, carefree atmosphere. Many adventurers had returned from the dark forest. Some wore expressions of sorrow, having lost companions, while others had satisfied smiles on their faces due to obtaining rich rewards, and they planned on a thorough night of depravity within the town of Drill. When it was dusk, Hansa first came to the place where Jean and the others had borrowed and stabled their battle steeds. He observed the place from a distance and noticed that the battle steeds that they had spent money to borrow were still present. He immediately understood that Fanny and everyone else probably hadn't returned to Drill yet. Although they had spent money on the battle steeds, the necromancy teachers and students only had the rights to use them. When they returned to Zajoski, they would have to return the battle steeds to the Zajoski guards in precisely the same condition that they had received them. Since the battle steeds were still here, that meant Fanny and them had definitely yet to leave. Hansa naturally knew that traveling with such haste by himself, he was sure to return much more quickly than Fanny's slowly plodding group. Perhaps Fanny and the others had been delayed by magical creatures along the way, so it was within his expectations that Fanny and the others hadn't returned yet. He went to the small hotel that everyone had stayed in previously, walked to the main counter and said with a smile, "I need a room." The owner was eating fruit with his eyes almost shut. He raised raised his head to flick a glance at Hansa and said lazily, "Oh, it's you. Give me 10 bronze coins. That warehouse is always empty. You can go there now." The last time Hansa had come with the others, Jean had especially rented out a warehouse for Hansa, and Hansa had been scorned by the owner because of this. Therefore, when the owner saw that it was Hansa, he naturally assumed that with Hansa's status he could only rent the warehouse. He didn't become angry but rather smiled and took out the money bag at his waist. He clinked and poured out 1 gold coin from it, dumping it onto the round wooden table. He looked sideways at the owner and said, "I don't want to stay in the warehouse." The owner had been lazing about when he suddenly sat up, swiping the gold coin off the round table. A professional smile swiftly pasted itself to his face and he raised his voice, Of course. How would a warehouse be worthy of 1 gold coin?" "Cute little fellow, tell me whatever kind of room you want to stay in. A gold coin will be more than enough." His treatment was drastically different from last times with the presence of gold coins. Hansa smiled faintly and nodded. "I want the room the female teacher was in last time. Arrange it for me." "No problem, not a problem at all. This is the key. 1 gold coin is enough for up to 5 nights there." "Do you have any other desires, young man?" the owner asked further with a toadying expression. The owner's face was wreathed in smiles as he merely took out a key from a drawer behind him and handed it to Hansa. "Nothing else, just go about your own business." Hansa walked directly towards the room that Fanny had occupied before, after receiving the key, thinking that money had the same miraculous power no matter what world one was in. It would seem that in order to gain one's footing in this world, gold coins were a requisite item. Hansa unloaded his belongings after arriving at the room Fanny had stayed in before leisurely taking a hot bath in the tub. Recalling the pleasant affair that had taken here last time, Hansa felt a burst of flames erupt from him and his lower body bore certain uncontrollable strong signs. Cursing in a low tone, Hansa stood up naked and grabbed a towel from the side to dry his body off. Just as he was about to leave the bathroom, he caught a glimpse of his athletic sculptured body in a wide mirror that had been off to the side. Hansa's body in the mirror displayed bulging muscles all over his body and a fit figure. The sun had turned his skin copper color during this time and he looked exceedingly healthy and full of masculine energy, a marked difference from his previous waif-like thin self. He squeezed his 2 chest muscles with satisfaction. They were neither too big nor too small, and he struck some poses in front of the mirror. Hansa pointed at his reflection in the mirror with quite some narcissism, laughing as he complimented, "Little fellow, looking good, eh?" Hansa came to a clothing vendor after he left the hotel and spent 1 gold coin to purchase a soft, high-quality undergarment, wearing it inside the errand boy uniform that the academy had handed out. He then came to a weapons vendor and spent 10 gold coins to purchase a higher quality dagger, 4 gold coins for 15 sharp steel needles, and hid them in his pant legs, and another 6 gold coins to purchase a miniature crossbow to hide in his sleeve, fully arming himself. Afterwards, Hansa went to a pharmacist and took out 40 gold coins to buy a few solutions and powders. Apart from a few simple medicinal supplies, tranquilizing and psychedelic aphrodisiacs were also part of the mix, as well as a bottle of poison. These items were prohibited within the Empire's city of Zajoski. Even if Hansa had the money, he didn't have the means to procure them, but in the town of Drill open trade was allowed because adventurers needed them. Since Hansa had come here with money in hand, and now that he understood the importance of strength, he naturally bought some in case they would be needed later. After he had bought all these items, Hansa finally sighed and thought that it was good to have money. He felt that even his spine was more upright than normal after walking out of the pharmacist. Everything became so much easier when there were gold coins in his money bag. On the way to the hotel, Hansa's stomach roiled as he looked at the hotels decked out in colorful lights. He followed his body's needs and ducked into one of the hotels. The din was loud and deafening within the hotel, and neon lights flashed randomly on the roof. Adventurers and merchants had formed small groups and had congregated on the tables and chairs within the hall, loudly chattering about their adventures. These people's faces were flushed red and they held wine glasses in their hands, drunkenly calling out and conversing without any reservations. Delicacies were placed everywhere on the tables, and a few young male and female waiters continuously threaded the throng, serving them more fragrant wine and dishes. Hansa made a beeline for the only empty table in the corner of the hall and sat down. A shy young waiter quickly walked in front of Hansa afterwards and asked politely, "Excuse me, what would you like?" "Good wine, good meats, give me some of both of them." Hansa fished out one gold coin and flicked it into the waiter's serving platter with his thumb, commanding loudly as he opened his mouth. When the server saw the gold coin land, his eyes immediately brightened and he immediately bowed even more respectfully. He put away the coin without a change in expression and smiled with a gentle voice. "Yes sir, please wait just a moment, it will be up right away." One should enjoy themselves when they had wealth to spend. Hansa lazily lounged against the chair and sized up the various adventurers and merchants in the hall with slitted eyes. Some of these had possibly just returned from the dark forest or were about to enter to dark forest. Some of them had just escaped from danger, whereas others were planning on heading into unknown perils. They were all releasing their energy in great waves, enjoying the depravity of the town of Droll to their heart's content. After a while the shy server placed a bottle of light purple wine, 3 large platters of meat and 2 bowls of fruit on Hansa's table. "This is purple Leyland, the most renowned wine in the town of Droll. Adventurers all love drinking this. I hope you will be satisfied with it." The waiter pointed at the bottle of light purple wine and introduced it after placing everything on the table. He then bowed and retreated. Hansa couldn't wait and grabbed a piece of meat and started tearing away at it. Although it didn't taste as good as the ones he'd prepared, it was still quite good. He twisted the top off the wine bottle and gulped down a large mouthful of purple Leyland. The luscious sweetness also embodied a certain fire to it, and a mellow aftertaste was left in the mouth after it had traveled down to the stomach, bringing another kind of enjoyment to Hansa. "Good wine indeed," Hansa complimented. When he raised his head to look around, he suddenly saw 2 familiar figures walk in the door. Claude and Irene. Claude and Irene scanned the area searching for an empty seat. Both started when their gazes landed on Hansa, after which they actually started walking towards Hansa in pure coincidence. Chapter 49, A Belated Revenge. "Isn't this the Necromancy Major's errand boy?" Claude asked with a frown as he'd made his way to stand next to Hansa. "Necromancy errand boy Brian. Who would have thought that we'd bump into each other here?" Hansa nodded, gulped down another mouthful of purple Leyland and smiled in response. "There seems to be no seats left." "Claude, why don't we switch to another place for dinner?" Irene raked a gaze over Hansa with a trace of disdain in her eyes. "No need at this moment. Most of the hotels in Droll must be packed with people. There's only Brian at this table. Since we're all from the academy, I'm sure Brian wouldn't mind if we sat down with him, would you, Brian?" Claude said to Irene with a smile, and then stared merrily at Hansa. "Of course I don't mind. If you don't feel that sitting with an errand boy like myself detracts from your dignity, I'll gladly share a table with you too." Claude had injured his little skeleton in the past in order to appease Irene. Perhaps Claude had long since forgotten about this matter, but Hansa had silently remembered it. Now that his strength had increased, Hansa had lost more and more reservations when taking action. He'd been fretting that he had lost his chance to enact revenge on Claude, but who knew that he'd come knocking on Hansa's doorstep. Hansa was nationally loath to let this opportunity pass by. "I hate everyone from the Necromancy Major, even errand slaves are without exception." Irene creased her brow, flicked a look at Claude and spoke coldly. Claude started, then threw a meaningful glance at Irene. He smiled and said to Hansa, "Brian, aren't you with the rest of the Necromancy Major? How come we don't see any sign of them and you're here by yourself?" "Oh, come to think of it, you and errand boy would be able to enjoy such a rich feast of food and wine. How surprising." Irene also looked at Hansa with surprise upon hearing Claude's words. She seemed to particularly mind about Claude's questions and was in no hurry to leave at this point. When Claude saw that Irene had displayed an expression that indicated her interest, he eagerly wiped off the dust on the seat in front of her. She finally sat down unhurriedly after he had indicated that she should sit. Hansa ripped apart the grilled meat in his hand and sent it into his stomach completely as if nothing had happened. He belched in satisfaction after another mouthful of wine, rubbed his stomach in self-satisfaction and said with a smile, "Master Fanny and the others should be back soon. They were afraid that I would be a burden and so gave me a few gold coins for me to wait here for them. Are there any problems?" No. So that's the situation, right? Brian, how was your haul this time? Any high-level magical creatures?" Claude winked at Irene and asked Hansa, Hansa with a smile. Irene revealed an expression of interest and likewise stared intently at Hansa, seeming to suddenly care quite a bit about the Necromancy Major's Hall. Shaking his head, Hansa said, "I don't know." I returned halfway. "I don't know if they had any major gains, but I think their hall this time wouldn't be too small." "Huh. Those people, what kind of haul could they get?" "They could at most hunt down some level 5 magical creatures and likely find it hard to kill even a level 4. Irene looked at Hansa contemptuously and snorted coldly. Hansa only faintly flicked a glance at Irene in the face of her jeering and didn't say much. At this moment Claude had already hailed the waiter and also used 1 gold coin to arrange for some wine and meat. Hansa inwardly took stock of the situation, wondering how to take his revenge on Claude. After thinking for a while, an involuntary trace of a wicked smile appeared on his lips. He calmly and subtly took something similar to a banana peel from the plate in front of him and threw it underneath his foot. When a fast-walking waiter carrying a plate appeared, Hansa pushed out with the toes of his right foot and sent the fruit peel abruptly flying out from beneath the table. The waiter was setting a fast pace with plates in hand when he set 1 foot on the fruit peel, stumbled with an exclamation of surprise and fell forwards. The plate in his hand flew out and hurtled towards Claude and Irene from behind. Claude and Irene reacted upon hearing the commotion and suddenly turned around. Claude's right hand abruptly rose and deftly caught the plate, crashing towards them. At the same time, Hansa's left hand flashed out like lightning, and with a flick of his pinky finger the gray-white psychedelic aphrodisiac landed quietly in Claude's wine glass. "Be careful when you walk." At this moment Claude's brow was furrowed as his right hand handed over the plate he'd caught to the waiter, who had stood up once again. His voice was displeased. "Thank you, noble knight. I will be careful in the future." The waiter fearfully took the plate from Claude and quickly left after a bow. Hansa was composed and collected. His head was lowered as he lifted his glass, drinking wine as if nothing had happened, like he hadn't noticed what had just happened. Claude and Irene didn't say much to Hansa afterwards. Claude fawningly talked with Irene, putting away glass after glass of purple Leyland with psychedelic aphrodisiac mixed in. Irene's expressions were corresponding to Claude on and off. It looked like she had yet to accept Claude's love. "You guys take your time. I still have some matters to attend to and will be heading off now." Hansa knew with certainty that the psychedelic aphrodisiac powder had been absorbed by Claude when he drained down several glasses of purple Leyland. He immediately stood up and dropped this sentence. Claude and Irene were originally derisive of Hansa to begin with. They'd absolutely paid no heed to him and wished devoutly that Hansa would leave, as opposed to being an irritating sight in front of them. They waved their hands in unison after Hansa's words, indicating that Hansa should have left earlier if possible. After a bit of time they no longer concealed the scorn on their faces. Leaving the hotel with a smile, Hansa stood alone in an undetectable street corner beside the hotel. After a while a hotly flushed Claude and a slightly pink-cheeked Irene walked out side by side, heading for the north side of Drill. The sky was dark by now and the festivities of the town of Drill had reached their peak of the day. Adventurers formed in groups of 3 or 5 staggered drunkenly loudly down the streets. Hansa followed the two noiselessly and stood by the side of the street waiting for a good show. Upon seeing the two of them enter a luxurious hotel, according to Hansa's observations just now, it seemed that Claude had yet to move Irene's heart. If at this moment, under the influence of the psychedelic aphrodisiac, Claude did anything that exceed boundaries, he was sure to be severely beaten by Irene. Fruit in hand, Hansa ate leisurely and thought wickedly. No disturbances had come from the hotel. After a while, just when Hansa was beginning to lose his patience, the hotly flushed clerk suddenly walked out from the hotel and walked onto the streets with great haste. Hansa's thoughts moved. He hadn't thought that Claude's willpower would be so strong that he hadn't fully lost all rational thought by now, but judging from Claude's appearance, Hansa knew that he wouldn't be able to hold out for much longer, and he quickly caught up to Claude, following him from afar. Indeed, he'd only made it about 10 or so meters when Claude slightly lost control after a wave from a heavily made-up, scantily clad older woman. He panted heavily as he made for the alley, looking like he would resolve his biological needs at close proximity. Wasn't that Claude?" An exclamation sounded from the adjacent street. Hansa swiveled his head to sudden joy inwardly exclaiming, even the heavens are helping me. The light major teacher Beecher and a few light major students happened to be passing by. One of the female students with particularly sharp eyes just so happened to see Claude and the coy revealing woman dart into the alley and had cried out in astonishment. No way, how could Claude be that kind of person? He is a noble knight and wouldn't demean himself in places like this. Not to mention that Claude is pursuing Irene right now, so there is no way that he'd do so. Beecher frowned and said in unconvinced confusion, "It really was him. I'm sure I didn't see him properly. If you don't believe me, we can go inside and check." The female student who had spoken first thought for a moment and then said decisively, "Come Katie, it's none of your business here. Don't go poking your nose where it doesn't belong." Beecher was silent for a moment and then hurried the students to leave quickly. Katie looked angrily at the alley and stomped her foot after a moment's thought. "How can this be allowed?" I'm going to tell Irene. If Claude isn't in his room, then it must be him. I will absolutely not allow Claude to defraud Irene's feelings. Katie left in a fast huffy pace as soon as she'd finished talking, making a beeline for the hotel that Irene was staying at. The other light major students looked askance at each other when she left, not knowing what to do. Hansa almost couldn't hold his raucous laughter in. Who would have thought that things would work out like this? Hansa had been planning on doing things himself and think of a scheme to lure Irene here. Who knew that Claude was really so unlucky? Looks like it would be difficult for him to avoid bad luck today even if he tried. After a while, an Irene with a frigid expression and a huffy Katie walked swiftly from afar. One look at Irene's expression was enough to know that she was feeling incredibly wrathful. Claude would find it tough to get out of this one. Claude was indeed not in the hotel. Looks like I didn't see incorrectly. That must have been him just now. Irene, I think if we should go in now, we'll be able to catch him in the act. How could he commit such despicable acts as a noble knight? Claude is too disgusting. Katie looked angrily at the alley after she'd arrived. Irene nodded with an icy face, wasting not a moment more with talk, and grabbed Katie in a rush to the alley. Beecher and the others were afraid that a messy situation would develop and followed after a moment's hesitation. When they'd all gone in, Hansa unhurriedly made his way into the alleyway with a sinister face dressed in an evil smile. Chapter 50. A harsh reality. A ear-piercing round of screams first sounded, then all sorts of noises followed, coming from a house on the left side of the alley. After a while, Beecher and the others came out dragging a bedraggled Claude who wasn't quite there. Irene's face was full of rage as she grimly lectured Claude while staring at him. She spoke vehemently, "Claude, you're disgusting. I never want to see you again." "Katie, let's go." With the way that things had developed, Hansa knew that his revenge had been exacted and that there was no further need to stick around. When he saw Irene and Katie walking quickly in his direction, he hastily hid himself and leisurely made his way back to the hotel. Back in the hotel, Hansa washed up and then sat cross-legged on the bed to practice magic. The magical yuan slowly expanded his meridians inch by inch. Hansa grit his teeth against the heart-wrenching pain and continuously circulated his magical yuan according to the instructions of the open passages realm. Unbearable pain often accompanied the process of practicing magic. This caused Hansa's personality to shift from its previously lackadaisicalness to firmly resolute. Whether it was his willpower or ability to stoically endure pain, Hansa had significantly increased both. Hansa's entire personality and character had unknowingly continuously changed with the advent of practicing magic. As his strength slowly increased, the previously timid and cowering Hansa had already experienced great changes. The way he viewed and understood things were vastly different from the thoughts that he had held prior. A solid dull footstep suddenly sounded in Hansa's heart. Hansa abruptly stopped all magic practice, held his breath and concentrated. All his bodily functions instantaneously sank into a frozen and unmoving status. The footsteps that had sounded until now had been from the southern intersection of the town of Drawl in the dark forest. Based on the dullness and rhythm of the thumps, Hansa could draw the conclusion that this came from a magical creature with high speed. This creature's weight was definitely heavier than a battle steed, and their numbers consisted of more than a few. Creasing his brow, Hansa thought for a while and walked out of the hotel, slowly moving towards the direction of the magical creatures, wanting to see what the situation was. Just as Hansa had emerged from the hotel and arrived at the southern streets of Drill, two figures had also rushed over with a look of haste. It was an elderly thin wizard and a female elven archer with green-tipped ears. The two displayed expressions of shock seeing Hansa upon arrival, as if they hadn't thought that Hansa would be here. "Little fellow, what are you doing here?" The thin small wizard gazed at Hansa and asked with a smile. From their cautious attitudes, Hansa understood that they had most likely also detected the disturbance coming from the south. Weighing things up internally, Hansa made a slight bow and responded, "Noble wizard, I've become separated from my companions. They said they would return here after a few days, so I've been waiting here." The wizard nodded and frowned in consideration. He said to the female elven archer next to him, "Blanche, go scout and see if it's wolf riders from the orcs. They always send wolf riders every year before winter to raid and loot the villages on the outer edge of the empire. But the town of Drill is in a unique location and is filled with large quantities of adventurers and mercenaries. The orcs had never sent wolf riders to attack Drill. Why would they act so oddly this time? Not to mention that there was still quite a bit of time before winter." "Yes, Master Felix." Upon hearing the old wizard Felix's words, the female elven archer called Blanche immediately headed south, floating in front of Hansa like a gust of wind. "Little fellow, the town of Drill isn't a peaceful place. It's late at night, so you should head back early to rest. Your companions should come looking for you when they return, so there's no need to continue waiting here." Felix looked at Hansa with a smile as he tried to convince Hansa. "All right then, I'll be heading back now." Hansa responded calmly and started picking his way back as soon as he'd finished speaking. After Hansa had left, Felix mused as he stared oddly at Hansa's retreating figure. He finally murmured to himself after a while, "I must be overthinking the situation. There's no way that this kid is more perceptive." Me, a wind archmage. On his way back to his hotel, Hansa noticed that a few others walked out from nearby hotels with the same surprised expression, hastily making their way to the southern street. It looks like they too had detected the disturbance and had gone to the southern street to check things out. "Brian, I have some matters with you. Come here for a second." On the way back, Hansa bumped into Claude on the street to the hotel. Claude's face was heavily overcast and it appeared that he was in an exceedingly bad mood. His heart skipping a beat, Hansa had a vague premonition of unease. He could strongly feel repressed rage emanating from Claude. Although Claude looked at him with a calm gaze, his teeth were gnashing slightly, still enabling Hansa to feel the strong ripples in his emotions. Staring at Claude dumbly, Hansa thought furiously. At this moment, Hansa understood that his actions in the hotel just now had still been too heavy-handed and impulsive. When Claude had sobered up, he would have surely detected his body's condition and certainly deduced that it was something caused by the purple Leyland in the hotel. Claude wasn't a stupid person. Only Irene and Hansa had been at the table then, and Irene would never do anything like this. Connecting the dots to when the waiter suddenly tripped, Claude must have sussed out the entire situation. Okay, Hansa thought carefully and knew that the situation was bad. He was prepared for a brutal beating from Claude as he followed behind the knight, walking slowly out of Drill and arriving at a secluded patch of forest to the south of Drill. Moonlight filtered through the forest as bugs chirped lightly nearby. However, Hansa's sensitive ears were able to catch the low breathing from Claude's strongly repressed fury. "Looks like it'll be quite a beating," Hansa thought dryly, but didn't feel too much fear. He had gotten used to the beatings during this time and knew his body's situation quite well. He knew that the usual type of blows would be unable to hurt him, so his heart was relatively calm. Just when he was thinking wryly, a ringing slap sent him staggering towards the left before he was able to react preventatively. It was a good thing that Hansa's body far outstripped normal people's. He steadied himself in the mess, regained his footing and scrunched up his face as he smiled dryly at Claude. "You damned lowly slave, pig, who do you think you are to scheme against me?" Claude's firmly repressed anger had finally exploded. An ugly vehement face stared at Hansa as his usual sunny gentlemanly demeanor had long since vanished above the clouds. Philippa. A wave of attacks rained down on Hansa's body. Hansa clutched at his head with both hands and didn't raise them to defend defend himself, taking the hits from Claude's thundering rage. He finally abruptly curled into a ball and fell to the ground, looking like he couldn't take any more hits. "Well, does that hurt? I won't let you die so easily. Do you know who I am? I am Claude, the son of the commander of the Empire's Griffin Legion, Commander Bob Ash. You lowly errand boy dares to scheme against me and ruin my relationship with Irene. I will make you experience agony and pain in full before letting you die slowly." Ahaha! Claude stared venomously at Hansa as he drew his longsword with a cold smile, walking slowly toward Hansa. Up until now, Hansa had finally understood that he had always committed a huge error. Whether it was Fitch or Bach, his methods had always embodied a large amount of risk. With his status as an errand slave, no matter who killed him, they wouldn't have to endure too much backlash. Even if Bach killed him, the Academy would probably only admonish him for a few words and demand a few gold coins in compensation. Hansa had originally thought that Claude would at most brutally beat him up for a prank like this, but the result now had finally facilitated Hansa in understanding the harsh reality. Claude not only wanted him to die this time, but also wanted him to fully experience agony and pain before dying. This was the harsh reality. At the moment, Hansa finally understood what kind of world this was. Status and position were foundational, integral existence. A yawning difference in status existed between the two, allowing Claude to kill him without reservations and without a need to bear any particular responsibility. Claude had called him to this deserted forest because he didn't want to ruin his noble status and self. Even if he'd killed Hansa, it would have been quite matter of fact, with no one thinking about it twice. Growth always came at a cost. Hansa curled up on the ground, still emitting loud wails and pleas for mercy. A heart that only held vague thoughts of evil slowly hardened with cold. "I will dice you into several pieces, letting you wail as you bleed. You will slowly fully experience pain before dying. Remember your status in your next life. You're a mere errand slave, a pig. Never attempt to challenge the temper of your superiors." Claude snickered sinisterly as the long sword in his hand pierced towards the chest of a Hansa who had seemed to long since losing the ability to defend himself. At this moment, the continuous howls suddenly disappeared as Hansa's curled figure abruptly moved, rolling towards Claude's feet. His speed was such that it caught Claude off guard. When Claude was about to dodge, he suddenly emitted a ghastly wail. A few iron needles stuck out from the tops of his feet, firmly nailing his feet to the ground. A wave of bone-cutting pain emanated from his lower abdomen. Claude lowered his head to find a dagger sticking out of his stomach. Hansa looked at him with a cold and distant gaze, the look in his eyes giving Claude a very foreign feeling. "I am the son of the commander of the Griffin League. You damned errand slave, how dare you harm me?" Claude's body was racked with pain as he yelled furiously with a weak voice. "Thank you for letting me know the harsh truth of reality. It's because of your vaunted status that not only will I harm you, I'm going to kill you." After saying these words in a remote tone, another iron needle appeared in Hansa's right hand and directly pierced through Claude's throat amidst Claude's terror-filled screams.